The Irish Data Protection Commission fined Instagram €405 million for not securing children's data by default. In another case, Amazon was fined €746 million for allegedly failing to get cookie consent on its website, whereas WhatsApp was fined €225 million for failing to properly explain its data processing practices in its privacy notice. European Union is strictly dealing with the non-compliance of the GDPR law, and as we see, more and more countries are trying to protect their people's right to privacy. This puts pressure on organizations who manage PII data of the European Union to ensure privacy and security of its PII. As a result, it becomes rather crucial for InfoSec and GRC folks to understand how to secure and audit privacy. Hello and welcome to Information Security Governance, Risk and Compliance. My name is Salvador and today let's review GDPR privacy in 10 checkpoints. Let's get started. Point number 1, governance. Ensure that a well-defined, comprehensive and approved data privacy policy is in place. Check that the organization has a process to stay updated with the relevant codes of conduct, standards and guidelines and has appropriate data protection policies developed, implemented and reviewed regularly. Check and ensure that organization maintain a risk management program that includes considerations for data privacy, risk for mishandling personal data, a defined framework to assess and manage threats across the organization. Check whether the organization has established applicable GDPR privacy obligation that applies to personal data processing activities. Ensure that organization maintains a record of data processing activities, the purpose and scope of the activities, justification for use, key organization contacts and types of data used. And importantly, ensure that the data protection and privacy practices are embedded with the culture of organization through ongoing training efforts and awareness programs among the employees. Point number 2, data protection impact assessment, as in DPIA. Data protection impact assessment is a process to identify and mitigate risk to data protection and to demonstrate compliance with data protection regulations of EU GDPR. Ensure that data protection impact assessment is performed and documented whenever an organization identifies high-risk processing activities, records the activities and reviews on a regular basis. Ensure the data is classified and labeled in different categories such as sensitive, confidential or public, and whether supervisory authority is consulted in cases of high-risk processing. Make sure the organization determines the risk associated with personal data processing as well as determines how to mitigate the risks. Check and verify that DPIA results are reported to regulators and external stakeholders. Point number 3, Data Protection Officer. The Data Protection Officer is a mandatory role for all companies that collect or process EU citizens' personal data under Article 37 of GDPR. Both the controller and processor must appoint a DPO if they are a public body or perform large data processing. Ensure that a person is appointed as a data protection officer who has excellent knowledge of data protection laws and reports to the highest management level of the company. Check and verify that the DPO does not have any conflict of interest of other duties as a data protection officer. Ensure the DPO performs independent review and oversight of data privacy activities and stays up to date with regulatory requirements and maintains the domain expertise. Ensure that the data protection officer provides guidance on defining and maintaining roles and responsibilities of data privacy positions within the organization and reviews all necessary compliance regulations for data privacy requirements based on GDPR and other relevant regulations. Make sure that the contact details of a data protection officer has been published and communicated to the supervisory authority. Point number 4, data collection. Every organization collects customer, employees or users data for different reasons like marketing, record keeping, etc. It's important to understand how data can be collected if you are subject to privacy or GDPR regulation. Check and verify that the personal data is collected and processed lawfully, fairly and transparently. Check and verify that personal data is collected for specific reason which is explicitly mentioned during the collection and has a legitimate purpose. Ensure that personal data is collected is limited to what is necessary and no more than required. Ensure that collected data is accurate, kept up to date and deleted when no longer necessary. During the data collection, ensure an explicit consent is defined and implemented, and if the subject does not want to continue, make sure that there is a withdrawal cancellation facility is in place. With respect to children, ensure consent is given by the parent or a responsible guardian. Point number 5, data subject rights. The customers, employees, clients or simply known as subjects have rights defined in the GDPR with respect to their privacy. These are called as subject rights. GDPR provides strong rights to the people when it concerns with its processing of personal information. Ensure that there is a process for the subjects to modify and even delete his or her data. Check and verify that there is a process that the subjects can use to restrict his or her data processing and move the data to another processor. Ensure the organization has a process on how the subjects access their data and be informed about their data. Check and verify that all information provided to the data subject is in transparent, clear and plain language and in a generally acceptable format. Point number 6, data security and protection. To secure and ensure the privacy of the data, it is important to know where the data is located across the organization. Check and verify that the organization has identified where personal data is stored and have the ability to locate all instances of personal data of a given customer or a data subject. Ensure privacy by design is implemented. Make sure access control is implemented on personal data and has established a process for access control such as segregation of duties and principle of least privilege. Ensure data in transit and at rest is protected by an encryption policy and the data is encrypted and or pseudonymized wherever possible. Ensure that organization has implemented technology and processes to enable it to restore personal data availability in a timely manner in the event of it becomes unavailable due to incidents such as cyber attack and natural disaster, power outage or even technical challenges. Check a periodic security assessment, evaluation and mitigation of the infrastructure risk is performed regularly. Point number 7, breach response. Ensure that the organization is aware about the 72-hour breach response and if any breach incidents had occurred or proper breach response measures were taken. Check and verify the evidences of breach response. Ensure that the data breach notices are described in clear and plain language, giving the breach's nature and impact, the appropriate contact person, and the organization's remedial and mitigation approach details for the breach. Ensure that there is a process or technology to detect data breaches across all the organizations as well as third-party systems. Make sure that there is a detailed record of data breaches, causes, impacts, and remedies as well as learnings from the data breaches. Point number 8, international data transfer. Data localization is one of the very important non-compliance seen recently and is dealt with severe penalties. Hence, ensure strict compliance with respect to cross-border data transfer of personal data. If the personal information is transferred internationally, ensure that the subject is informed and consent is taken. Make sure that adequate and appropriate safeguards are implemented for personal data transfers across international boundaries as prescribed standards published by European Union or local government, regulatory authorities and agencies. Ensure that the organization maintain a record of all processing activities that involve personal data or sensitive personal information into and out of the European Union. Point number 9, privacy policy and website. If the organization's website collects, shares, transfers or releases any information to third parties, ensure that there is a privacy policy describing what data will be accessed and with whom it will be shared. This is pertaining to collecting data via cookies and displaying a privacy policy on the website. If the website contains links to other websites, ensure to define the nature of the relationship between your organization and the linked website pages in your privacy policy. Finally, point number 10, data controllers and processors. Data controller, in short, is an entity that determines the purpose of any personal data and the means to processing it, whereas a processor is an entity that processes personal data on the behalf of a data controller. Data controller and processor has accountability and responsibility to the personal information. Make sure that controller and processors have adequate technical and administrative measures to demonstrate compliance with GDPR or data privacy. Ensure that the organization as a controller maintains an inventory of all the processes that transmit personal data to third-party service providers and assesses third-party service providers for adherence of personal data requirements. Ensure that a personal data protection requirement is embedded within contracts and agreements with third-party service providers or processors. Make sure that the processor understands to notify the controller of a personal data breach without undue delay. Ensure that the processor does not engage other sub-processors without the written consent or authorization of the controller. Ensure that the processor has implemented all the required controls to ensure the security and privacy of the personal information that is being processed by the entity. This presentation is an attempt to get you started in GDPR privacy regulation. For a detailed and thorough understanding, kindly refer to GDPR website. Do provide your feedback and like and share the video. Subscribe the channel for more videos on information security and GRC. Thank you for watching the video. See you in the next video.